Looking to purchase a used car? I'm going to walk you through the checklist of what to look out for. Let's go. I purchased this BMW from a private party, but this walkthrough can apply to any car. Looks clean, right? Well, it has 106,000 miles and is 20 years old. With BMW, if there's any issues, it can cost more than what I purchased the car for. So let's go through a comprehensive list to make sure I didn't get the raw end of the deal. Walking up to the car, let's start with a visual inspection. There's a questionable touch-up, but the owner did tell me this wasn't a small fender bender, but not major. It's always good to check out the Carfax report, but Carfax doesn't list everything, so it's not 100% reliable. The accident didn't show up on this car's Carfax report. And some sellers don't tell the whole story, or they just aren't honest. But checking the Carfax first could save you time in going out to see the car if there are a bunch of issues reported. Also, you want to make sure it has a clean title. Salvage title could be a ticking time bomb that you just can't see visually. A good thing to look at are the gaps between the panels. If they're not spaced correctly, this could show that some poor bodywork was done or an accident that wasn't reported. I'd like to look for any door dings or areas that aren't perfect. Also, a panel that the paint might not match the rest of the car. This could show that there was an accident. While you're walking around the car, open and close all the doors. They should open and close smooth. Also, the trunk and hood. If these get hit, these areas could be affected where they never close just quite right. If you can see the brake pads, try to look into the wheel well. Sometimes you can see the thickness of the pad. If it's too thin, you might need to bring it in for new brakes. Also, look at the rotors. Don't worry if they're rusty. The car might have been sitting and the first drive will clean that rust off. You'll want to see if there's any gouges or scratches. That could also show a problem for the brakes needing to be checked. Take a look at where the car is parked and if there are any oil stains. Right underneath where the engine is. Obviously, if it's in a public area, it's hard to tell, but if it's in a garage or driveway, this might say something. Now, if you can, it's best to look underneath the car. This is where a good mechanic could come in. They could take this panel off and see more of what's going on. They will look for leaks. This car had a bunch of service records, so I took my chances. It's good to look at the suspension with older model cars to see if anything is loose or worn out. Give it a nice tug. Look at the tie rod and ball joints. Also look for leaks from the shocks. When we do the test drive, some of this could be uncovered. If possible and the car is jacked up, see if there's any loose movement with the wheel. Check the tire tread. There's an old way of doing this with a penny to check the depth. Here's where they say the tread depth should be of good old Abe's portrait. Usually if it's at the top of his head or near, it's a warning to replace. This is at the middle of his face. I have some time. Also, while you're checking, you'll want to look at both front and back tires to make sure they're wearing evenly. If they're not, there might be a suspension or an alignment needs to be done. Now, let's get to the engine. It's good to start the engine when it's cold to see if it starts right up. Right when it starts, look at the exhaust pipes to see if smoke comes out. With smoke, there can be several issues. Bad air-fuel mixture, it's burning oil, several things. This car has no signs of exhaust smoke, which is a good thing for an older car. Let's pop the hood and check out the engine. What we're looking for are signs of leaks and conditions of hoses. It's good to have a small flashlight. In many cars, they have these covers which can be hard to see around. But look around the edges here for black residue. The valve cover has seals that can wear over time and leak. This is where the oil filter is for the BMW, and it's good to check around here where there are also seals that can leak. A difficult thing about buying a used car is to know if the previous owner was on top of changing the oil. Obviously, this can extend the life. Check the larger hoses. These are for the radiator to allow water to cool the motor, and the thinner lines are for the AC system. Check the condition and if there are any cracks. If there are water leaks, your car will eventually overheat. These look good. Another item that's good to look at is the drive belt, or also called the serpentine belt. Make sure there are no cracks or it's worn. This goes bad and you'll be stranded. I like to check the dipstick if the car has one. Some of the newer ones don't. Give it a nice wipe with a white cloth and look at the color and that it's filled to the line. You can see this is on the light side because we just changed the oil right when we purchased this vehicle. If the oil is black and sludgy, question if the car was taken care of. Also, if you do buy the car and the oil is dark, just get the oil changed and keep track of the oil changes moving forward. Start the car and rev the engine to see if you hear any strange noises. It's good to keep it running to make sure it doesn't overheat. While the engine is running, check the AC that it works and is cold. The AC went bad in ours. We put in Freon and checked for leaks, but didn't find anything, so far it's good. You can go back and check the engine again and see if you hear anything strange. When you buy a car, always consider the mileage. 100,000 miles could be a lot on a car that wasn't taken care of. If it was taken care of with oil changes and other services, you could get 200 or even 300,000 miles from a car, depending on the quality of the vehicle and if the service intervals were met. A real nice and inexpensive tool to have is an OBD reader. Cars have a port usually on the driver's side. Plug it in, start the engine, and run the scan. It'll find fault issues communicating with your car's computer. If you have fault codes, then your car probably won't pass smog and has an issue. This car passed all scans from this device. It is always good to have a trusted mechanic look at the car, but in my case, I didn't want to go through the hassle. That is a risk, but so far we've been okay. But I mean, hey, what can go wrong? Now that's a good entry into the test drive, but when you get in the car, test all the electronics. All 4 windows. Repairing a motor in a window can be costly, and don't forget the sunroof if you have one. All good and no strange sounds. Another thing to check is the headliner. Make sure there's no bubbling or sags. With older cars, this could start coming down, and you would have to have the entire liner roof redone. Now the fun part, the test drive. Put your foot on the brake and shift into all the gears and see how smooth the transition is. It would be good to take the car on the freeway, where the car will also have to change gears, and you can check how smooth this is. If it's a manual stick, you'll want to see if the clutch is slipping, then grabs. This could mean the car is due for a new clutch. Automatic transmissions can also start slipping when they get older and need to be serviced. AC is still cold? That's good. Try to listen for any noises or pulling when turning. Take your hands off the wheel while going straight and see if the steering wheel goes straight or pulls to one side or the other. As you turn, see how easy it is and if there's any noise from the power steering. In older BMWs, these orange displays are notorious for going out. I got lucky with this one that it still works, but every other BMW we looked at, the screens had issues. If you think there's something I missed, let me know in the comments, and if this helped, give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. Hopefully my next video won't be how to fix a broken down BMW.